I told him, I tell him face to face, I've said it on the show, he went too far left for me often. But it is encouraging to see that in at least three places I can think of, he has moved it back to the center. But he's got a long way to go if he wants to do that.
Maher is still calling out the Democrats, urging them to wake up before it's too late. Since their crushing loss in last November's elections, the DNC has tried multiple times to stage a comeback. But Maher believes those attempts are hollow, driven by the same delusion and arrogance that pushed them into opposition in the first place. In a recent interview with Stephen A. Smith, Maher didn't hold back, taking direct aim at his own party for refusing to face reality. There's a lot to unpack here, so let's get into it.
To me, the Democratic Party is a ghost brand. You know what a ghost brand is? It's like Sears or, General Electric. It's still a company, Abercrombie and Fitch, but they've really fallen on hard times.
Yeah.
But they've been around for a long time. So there is value in, it's an asset, right? Because there are still people who know of the company, and if you could have somebody take it over, who's not sentimental about that company and relaunch it, rebrand it, but it would have to be somebody who is unapologetic about calling them out. People have lost faith in the Democratic Party for very good reasons.
Maher argues that the DNC has become a shadow of its former self, a party that once stood proudly for the poor, the working class, and the marginalized. It used to champion fairness, opportunity, and inclusion. But today, he says, it's almost unrecognizable, an ideological battlefield where fringe ideas collide and common sense is lost. Instead of bringing people together, it's turned into a hub of moral posturing and endless virtue signaling. What's even more striking is that Maher isn't the only one saying this. Even top Democrats, including Gavin Newsom, have acknowledged that the party has grown toxic and desperately needs a reset if it hopes to restore its credibility and win back everyday Americans who feel abandoned by its current direction.
The only one I hear who doesn't look like he cares what the other Democrats will say about it.
I don't care. And I really don't.
Right,
I
know.
I don't give a damn what they say. I really don't.
I know. And it's somebody, I don't either. I'm right where you are. We're very close on all these things. And I think somebody with that kind of abandon is the only person who is going to win back former Democratic voters who have switched over.
Maher insists that the DNC is in desperate need of bold, dynamic leadership, people capable of inspiring the same loyalty and influence that Trump commands within the GOP. In his view, the current leadership lacks charisma, conviction, and any real connection to everyday voters. They're too entangled in political correctness and performative wokeness to grasp what truly matters to Americans right now, real solutions, not empty slogans. Maher argues that this fixation on identity politics and virtue signaling has driven away millions of moderates and working-class voters who once formed the party's foundation. To him, unless the Democrats find a leader who can channel people's frustrations, bring them together, and stand firm against ideological extremes, they'll keep losing ground to a GOP that, for better or worse, has mastered emotional and cultural influence.
So have faith in California Governor Gavin Newsom, did you not?
I'd love him as a candidate, yes. I mean, you're right. He's not exactly what I'm describing now.
Right.
I think he'd be a great candidate. He has shown in recent months the ability also to move to the center. He would have to do it a lot more. But as a candidate, he looks great. Great speaker, very forceful, can be mean, which is really important, and he can do it. He also has the backing, or certainly should, of where the energy is in the Democratic Party, the far left, because he's been out front on a lot of very liberal issues, which I think is great. Gay marriage here in California and stuff like that, pollution, all sorts of stuff that we believe in.
Notice how Maher doesn't mention a single real achievement from Gavin Newsom. That silence says a lot. Even Maher, who's long been viewed as one of Newsom's defenders, seems unable to point to any concrete accomplishments from the California governor's time in office. Instead, what stands out is Maher's subtle acknowledgement that Newsom is deeply aligned with the far left. In other words, Gavin has firmly planted himself in the woke camp, the very ideology Maher frequently calls out. And that's where things get complicated. If even Maher, one of the few liberal voices willing to stand up for Democrats, hesitates to support a Newsom presidential run, it reveals a deeper problem. Maher's message is clear: the DNC can't rebuild its credibility or reconnect with mainstream America by doubling down on leaders who embody the same extreme politics that drove voters away in the first place, not now, and certainly not under Newsom's brand of leadership.
But, he does have a long trail to lose the baggage of governor of the most liberal state in the country. I tell him face to face, I've said it on the show, he went too far left for me often. But it is encouraging to see that in at least 3 places I can think of, he has moved it back to the center, but he's got a long way to go if he wants to do that.
Maher has finally acknowledged what many have suspected for a long time: Gavin Newsom has veered too far to the left and can no longer be trusted to lead the country responsibly. It's a striking admission from someone who once praised Newsom as a rising Democratic star. I remember watching an episode of Real Time with Bill Maher where Maher questioned Newsom about California's controversial law requiring large department stores to include gender-neutral toy sections. Instead of offering a clear or thoughtful answer, Newsom drifted into a jumble of buzzwords and talking points, what Maher jokingly calls word salad, complete with awkward hand gestures and forced smiles. That exchange perfectly captured what Maher has grown tired of: leaders more interested in appeasing progressive activists than tackling the real issues facing everyday Americans. To him, that's not leadership, it's political theater.
Do you think a far lefty can win a national election in this day and age? A presidential election. Do you think that could happen?
A far left, you mean like AOC?
Yes. I'm just whether it's what you said about Newsom, whether it's an AOC. I mean, do you think somebody like that can win a general election for the presidency of the United States in this day and age? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I mean, that's, anything is possible, and possibly it would excite a certain group of people who have not voted. What if 80% of Gen Z voted? Could then a Mondami-like candidate win? I guess so. But I'm not expecting that to happen, and I don't think it's the smart bet for the Democrats. There was an article in the Atlantic this week about, the Democratic leadership keeps saying the Democrats should change course, away from the far left, but they're not doing it.
Maher doesn't believe figures like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Zoran Mamdani have what it takes to challenge Republican dominance, and frankly, he has a point. These politicians continue to push the same hyper-progressive, woke ideals that alienated middle America and helped drive the DNC into opposition in the first place. Their fixation on activism over practicality may have made them social media darlings, but it's turned them into liabilities when it comes to winning real elections. Maher argues that if Democrats truly want to regain power, they need to break free from the far-left echo chamber and elevate leaders who represent true liberalism, people who champion free thought, reason, and balance rather than ideological purity. The DNC, he says, needs voices that unite rather than divide, leaders who can connect with working-class Americans, not just resonate in college halls and activist circles. Otherwise, the GOP will keep winning elections while Democrats keep wasting time arguing over pronouns.
I'm very, very worried about the left because you should be focusing on trying to win the midterms, and I don't see that happening. Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel for the Democratic Party for 2026 or 2028? My last question to you.
I think they can win those elections. I don't think the right, as long as they appear the right, and there is a lot of on the far left, as long as they appear that way to those Republicans, it doesn't matter if they win the election. The right is not going to give up power.
That's exactly the point Maher has been making. Until the left distances itself from fringe ideologies like claiming men can get pregnant or allowing biological males to compete in women's sports, it will keep drifting further away from mainstream America. The truth is, most Americans aren't preoccupied with debates about gender theory or pronoun etiquette. They're worried about real issues: the economy, job security, affordable housing, border security, and America's standing in the world. These are the concerns that define their daily lives, not the ideological battles being fought on college campuses or social media. Maher has repeatedly warned that by prioritizing identity politics over practical governance, Democrats are alienating the very voters they need to win. If the DNC wants to remain relevant and competitive, it must return to common sense, focusing on solutions that reflect the struggles, values, and aspirations of everyday Americans, not the performative agendas of online activists.
They've already shown they are perfectly comfortable with Trump still has not conceded the 2020 election.
Right.
you know, it's, as Stalin said, it's not who wins the most votes, it's who counts the votes. And so if the right still thinks that the left is an existential threat to this country because they want to rewrite all the rules of human nature and then have nobody debate them, yeah, I don't think it matters if the Democrats win. The Republicans will just find a way to say, no, actually, that's not going to happen.
Exactly. Maher's point cuts both ways, and it's an uncomfortable truth for everyone. Even years later, Hillary Clinton continues to suggest that Trump's presidency was illegitimate, repeating the claim in interviews and speeches. She's never fully accepted that he beat her fair and square in 2016, often citing interference or unfair conditions as explanations. That shows this isn't just a Republican problem, it's a bipartisan one. Both parties have shown an inability to accept defeat when the results don't go their way. Maher argues that democracy only functions when everyone, regardless of political affiliation, respects the process and accepts the outcome of free and fair elections. When losing becomes synonymous with fraud, conspiracy, or denial, the entire system starts to crumble. Until both sides learn how to lose with dignity and move forward, the cycle of division, distrust, and denial will continue to corrode American politics from within, and the real losers will be the people caught in the middle.
Right, because years ago you said that Trump wasn't going to walk away easily.
Yeah.
He was going to fight. You called it before anybody else did. And you've also pointed out that, and Gavin Newsom has now jumped on that bandwagon, they think he's going to try to circumvent the 22nd Amendment, courtesy of Steve Bannon and others, circumvent the 22nd Amendment of the Constitution, and he's going to stay after 2028 in some capacity. So all of that is stuff that we can get into at a later date. Bill Maher, host of Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO. Man, I love your show. It's the best political show.
Trump has made it clear on multiple occasions that he has no plans to seek a third term, and frankly, we should take him at his word. The Constitution limits presidents to 2 terms, and Trump has consistently said he intends to honor that. What matters more at this point is his leadership record and the tangible results that speak for themselves. The economy is showing signs of steady recovery, job growth is on the rise, and public confidence in his administration remains solid. Recent polls and the GOP's strong performance in the midterms only underscore that momentum. It's a reflection of how many Americans are responding positively to his policies and direction. Whether it's border security, foreign affairs, or economic expansion, Trump's approach continues to resonate with everyday citizens who feel their voices, long ignored by the political establishment, are finally being heard.
You can be woke with all the that now implies, but don't say that somehow it's an extension of liberalism.
Right.
Because it's most often actually an undoing of liberalism.
It's
so you can have your points of view and your positions on these things, but don't try to on what I've always believed. I have always believed, as liberals do, for example, in a colorblind.
Maher closes his argument by drawing a sharp line between being liberal and being woke. In his view, woke ideology may have started within liberalism, but the two have now gone in completely different directions. True liberalism, as Maher defines it, is built on open-mindedness, free debate, and the defense of free speech. It seeks progress through reason, tolerance, and understanding. Wokeism, however, has become rigid and intolerant, a movement more concerned with enforcing conformity than encouraging discussion. Instead of promoting equality, it polices thought. Maher argues that while liberals aim to persuade and include, the woke crowd seeks to shame and cancel. That, he believes, is the fundamental crisis tearing the left apart. Liberals want dialogue, the woke demand domination. Reclaiming the true liberal spirit, Maher says, means rejecting this authoritarian strain that hides behind the mask of progressivism. In the end, Maher's warning is clear and urgent. The Democratic Party is losing its soul. What was once a movement for fairness, free thought, and working people has been hijacked by ideological extremes that alienate ordinary Americans. Instead of addressing real issues like jobs, the economy, and national security, the party has become consumed by culture wars and virtue signaling. Maher insists that if the DNC hopes to regain both power and credibility, it must return to its liberal roots, grounded in reason, balance, and common sense. Real progress, he says, begins not with blind ideology, but with honesty and open dialogue. And with that, we'll wrap up today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more thoughtful discussions just like this one.